I am recording, and I do tend to put these videos on YouTube. So I hope I have your permission. And if you don't want to have your question or your face showing on the video, usually it records the speaker, which is me. Just type your questions in, I'll speak them out, and I'll answer those as we go along. The Hindu tradition, Hindu is a similar word to the word India, which comes from the Sindhu River. And so it's a name for a civilization that began somewhere in the region of the Indian subcontinent, but traces its history to long before and long since. It's a very long tradition that's been around for older than history that we have recorded and preserved. And it's a continuing living tradition. The other name for us is Sanatana Dharma, which is what it says on your schedule. Sana literally means that which is outside of time, which does not change with time. Things that are changeful are things like what day of the week is it? It's Sunday, but tomorrow it'll be Monday, and so on. It's true, but it's only true provisionally in time or context. But there are things that are true outside of time and context. The search for those is part of the first word that describes the tradition, which is that which is timeless. What is it that we can be sure of is outside of time? And then the other side of that is the exact opposite, which is that which changes with time, moment to moment, context to context, people to people. And that which is changeful is the right way to respond to the environment is dharma, which is a word you may also have known in the Buddhist context. You will also know that in the Jain or Sikh context. Dharma is a common word, and what it means is that which is a balanced response to the shifting nature of the universe around us. And so that which is timeless and that which is in time, those two combine to make the Sanatana Dharma. Back when I was preparing for after my engineering, I was preparing to get into MBA in India. I grew up in India. There used to be these books they used to sell side by side, quite interestingly, there was a book called What They Don't Teach You at Harvard. And right next to it was another red colored book which said What They Teach You at Harvard. And so clearly within those two books, we had the net sum of human knowledge, what they don't and what they do teach you at Harvard Business School. It's a combination of those. And now the Hindu tradition itself, in the US, there are about 5.2 million Indians. About 80% of those will be Hindu. There are Hindus not from India. There are native born American people that are Hindu. There are people in Africa that are Hindu. There are people all around the world that are Hindu. And it isn't just a geographic marker anymore. It's a philosophical system that's independent, it's internally consistent and freestanding, and can be followed by anyone. And as far as the American culture is concerned, Hindu ideas and philosophical constructs and practical things have seeped into the culture so much that it's practically impossible to tell what's what. For example, you already know the word yoga. I do namaste, and you know what that means. You might know that about 60% of Americans now cremate their dead and not burying. And so that is a Hindu practice. Since I arrived here 25 years ago and I'm vegetarian, it was impossible to find vegetarian food here. But now, I'm in California and I could go anywhere and tell them I'm vegetarian and not get one raised eyebrow. So those are things that have seeped into Western American society for sure. But it's not just at the surface. If you look at the works of Emerson and Thoreau, American transcendentalists, so American philosophy is very deeply informed by Indian philosophy. And so there's been a very healthy flow of ideas that have now seeped into modern culture. If I talk to you about reincarnation or just the word avatar itself, you already know that it's well known because there's several $billion worth of movies made on the word avatar. So you've heard the word before. You know the idea of reincarnation. You know the idea of Groundhog Day style coming again and again, and so on. So all of those ideas have seeped into Western culture and are familiar to you. And so while you may this may be, it's unlikely, but if this is your first deep conversation with a Hindu philosopher, you'd be surprised at how well you already know this stuff because much of it has already become part of the framework of American thought and American culture. If you look at a concern for ecology and Mother Earth itself, you go to a Hindu temple, there might be a little temple for Mother Earth. It turns out we were into it before it was cool, so to speak. All of that goes on. But Hinduism is, in general, Sanatana Dharma is in general very hard to describe to a Western audience simply because it cannot be described in a conventional sense. Definitions tend to define the other. It tells you what it is not, right? It tells you where this thing stops and the other thing begins. But Hinduism is not, cannot be defined by its boundaries. There is no credo you need to believe to come into the Hindu fold. As the Reader's Digest used to say in the 1980s, those mails that you might have received, read it too in India, you may already have one. And so you may already have absorbed enough of those ideas to call yourself a well-functioning Hindu and no one would complain. Because Hindu does not require the acceptance of a credo or a minimal belief that you need to buy into or repeat to yourself. Hinduism, on the other hand, is, in fact, you could be an atheist, a well-functioning atheist, and be completely, you could walk into any Hindu gathering and no one will complain. No one is going to look at you askance and say, well, what's this guy doing here? Because the Hindu set of Hinduism isn't a requirement to believe something on its own. Hinduism is really understanding the rhythms of the universe and trying to understand what might be the best way to live. And so that, of course, is changeful, but it requires you to just be open to all of these things and so on. I'm going to pause here because I've done a lot of philosophical hand waving, and so I'm going to see if this is I'm getting any response from the audience. Any questions or comments? Okay, so let me tell you a few things. There are several questions that when you go out as people that are working in spiritual care or chaplaincy, and you meet a Hindu family or patient that is off the faith or of the tradition at least, then what is it that you can be sure of? Right? Because it seems to be from the outside that there are these myriad, multicolored, multi-handed gods and goddesses, and it's very hard to figure out what's going on. And you don't want to say the wrong thing or assume the wrong things and so on. So I'll tell you a little bit more about the belief system in general. As an interfaith speaker, I'm called to speak at churches, synagogues, mosques all the time, schools, colleges. And usually the first question they ask in churches is, what temple do you go to? And this is a question that I did not understand. I didn't even understand the question. I know English perfectly well, but the question I did not understand because I didn't know that the question was coming from a particular angle, which is, what temple do you go to? And the Hindu answer to that is, I go to every temple. We don't congregate, which is one of my talks I gave a few years ago. Hindus don't congregate, we crowd. So we don't necessarily go to a church like a Sunday type thing where we say, this is the church that I belong to and so on. We go to any temple. We go to any place of worship. Hindus will gladly go to, we go to churches. If there's a church, we just go visit. We're not objecting to any of that. I go to Jain temples all the time. I can go to a Sikh Gurdwara and not feel out of place. The thing is, there's a lot of temples in the United States now, and Hindus could and do go to any and all temples. It is not a requirement. You need to go there. And about 80% Hindus do not visit a temple for like on a routine basis. They might go once a year and so on. So the first thing is Hindus don't necessarily have to go to a temple. Most might have an altar at home, a place where they might have figurines and so on. Most might have some rituals that they perform on a daily basis, might have memorized some Sanskrit verses as well as part of their upbringing and so on. But in general, there is no requirement. And it is not that you have fallen off the faith if you don't go to the temple. The temple is a place of God, but what is not? And so that brings us to the question of what God is and what we actually believe about the nature of God and the multifaceted reality. Rich, your hand is up, sir.
Yes, before we get into what sounds like a really big topic, John yesterday referred to something I had not heard of before, which is the Upanishadic Mass. And I wondered if that's familiar to you, and if you could just touch on that for a moment. Is that an actual festival or celebration, or just a normal sort of, worship service in some way?
Mass as in the Christian concept of a mass, not the physics idea of a mass, right? Okay.
Well, I think that's what he said. Did you guys hear that when he referred to the Upanishadic Mass? Yeah.
I think that came up when he was talking about Bede Griffiths and some of the Christian scholars who, and monks and oblates who adopted teachings of the Vedanta.
And that sort of construct of gathering in Vespers. I know they have those gatherings.
I think he was addressing, going off what Jamie just shared, the desire to be able to westernize the process a little bit by mixing some of the practices typically found in Christianity, specifically Catholicism, with the practices of Hinduism in order to allow Westerners to feel more comfortable in the practice.
Got it.
Yeah, so there's been a neo-Vedanta movement in the last few decades. This might belong to the. I hang out with a lot of Western Hindu groups, but I have not personally been to a service that I've been to, of course, Christian services all over the place, but I've not been to a sort of a Upanishadic mass as described. But I wouldn't be surprised if it is. There's definitely, over the last 200 years, several attempts to sort of to commingle these even in India and create something which is new in that sense. And again, in the Hindu tradition, this is all good. But in general, the gatherings that do happen in the Hindu tradition tend to be very festive, very colorful, very interesting. You've definitely heard of kirtans, which is the congregational singing and chanting. Those are extremely popular, especially if you've met the Krishnas, Hare Krishnas. They're of course always singing and chanting. It's quite kind of their thing. And so that's congregational singing, absolutely. So what happens is there's been an unbundling of the Western sort of at least the Christian church experience. In that unbundling is something I have a framework for. I'd be happy to show you that. But basically, we don't have the same way. You don't go to a one-stop shop like a Costco type deal where you also have the sermons, the singing, the confessionals, and the ministry kind of stuff all in one under one roof. That does not happen in the Hindu tradition. Hindu tradition tends to be more in the air. The same person, if you go to a temple, for example, there are purohits that are tending to the deities, that are living deities at the temple, but they're not there sermonizing. They're not necessarily going to give you sermons. They're not even doing your astrology for the most part, where you might do a private sort of confessional style conversation. The group gatherings tend to be more chanting oriented than lecture oriented. We do lectures, but they're on the side elsewhere. And so there's been an unbundling. And so, in fact, in the West, what I see more of is this DIY sort of thing where you take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and so on. Hinduism is sort of designed for that sort of DIYing because it's meant for everyone to assemble their own kit for their own uses. And so there'll be a lot of sort of commingling of ideas.
I had my meditation teacher follows a tradition of Kashmir Shaivism, I think through City Yoga, Muktananda Baba, and on that tradition. And they do, or at least before the pandemic, they would meet in their temples, if you will, they would serve, vegetarian dinner, and then there would be chanting followed by like a Dharma talk, and then like a 30-minute sit. And it was organized, sort of ritualistically in a way that was reminiscent, I think, of a more traditional Western worship service,
Yes.
Yeah.
So since Vivekananda, a lot of Western Indian monastic orders have adopted Western frameworks, so similar to what you described. Again, it's convenient because the gathering itself is a convenient place to have this sort of combination. So this does happen, but it's not the dominant culture for sure. Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. So let's just get into a few questions. There are a question here, Sonu. Okay. So let me just talk to you about a few things when you meet a Hindu professing person, the things that they can agree to. They're all from the Chaplaincy guide. By the way, this is on Amazon and I could send you a link, but basically the guide, and this is meant for people like us, which is people that are providing spiritual care. And so it has an introduction. So 10 things that I'm going to talk to you about. Now, you'll notice that the nature of God and belief will not be called out here, which is something you will see from the absence of. In general, Hindus think of the universe as a family, not just the collection of their tribe or their men or people of their faith, not just humans, but the entire universe. So things that move and don't move, things that are alive and not. Everything is one family. And kinship, a connection to everyone and everything, is an essential core of the tradition. The second is nature itself. We do not see ourselves as separate from nature, which, when I come to the big question about God, I will describe to you that. But essentially, everything is seen as being interconnected. Across the spectrum of Hindu philosophies and sectoral differences and so on, these are things that everyone generally agrees with. And there are differences that I can describe to you later. But harmony with nature, being in sync with nature, both the connection that we have, inner nature, outer nature, and our interaction at the center of those is very important. And in fact, a lot of the wide ecosystem of Hindu practices are about this restoration of balance and with nature. So very important. So we live in a context, and that's very important in the tradition. The third is elders are respected, and the seeking of blessings from the elders is taught from early on. We touch the feet of our elders, and you will see that routinely where an elder generally refers to age, but also means elders could be referring to their knowledge level as well. Someone might be a guru, and then you might touch their feet. Same thing, but the accumulation of wisdom is important. For a tradition that's been around for thousands of years, the accumulation of wisdom and experience is a very important. We are novelty seeking even as a people, but that novelty does not come at the cost of forgetting who we are and what we have. And so that's a very core part of the experience and what we teach. Respect for knowledge and teachers. Again, same theme, but essentially knowledge is very valued. The goddess of knowledge, Saraswati, is the daughter of the creator deity. And so knowledge is very highly valued and revered. And one thing that, and this is a cultural meme from, generally, but there was this movie that came out where recently, some kind of musical. I'm trying to remember which it was, but my daughter went to see it. And then I realized, and she's, in her early 20s. And we all realized that everyone cringed to when a particular scene came up where there were books on a table, and this lead singer, whatever the protagonist, is now dancing on the table on those books, putting their feet on book after book. And everyone who's Indian immediately had a visceral reaction to it. We do not let books on the floor. We do not touch books with our feet. And if you see any Indian person do that, they will immediately, viscerally, and without any training, just touch it to their head or somehow just prevent themselves from seeing something like that. And number 5, respect for all forms. And this here, what it says in Sanskrit is ahimsa paramo dharma, which is non-violence, is the highest form of righteousness. But that being said, it might seem like we're a pacifist religion. The sentence right after that is that as is violence, which is violence is also important. One second. Oh, yeah, sorry. That was wicked. You're right, JB. That was wicked. Sorry. So violence is also important in the Hindu tradition. A large corpus of our stories involve righteous violence in the sense that order and disorder are a very important part of the Hindu tradition. But order not in the Confucian way that order must be maintained by an internal sort of, set of something. We know that there is dynamism. We know that we're always dancing between order and chaos. We don't want the order of the graveyard, as they say, right? We want dynamism. That dance is important to us. But then there's disorder, which is completely bad for maintaining society. Restoration of order requires violence. And so what I'm saying here is nonviolence is an essential core tenet of the Hindu tradition, but a call to violence is equally a core tenet as well, because it restores order. It restores situation where everyone can thrive. When that situation breaks down, all society begins to falter and then it collapses. So to maintain a thriving society, we need to maintain a heart filled with nonviolence, but arms ready, just in case. So the joke, of course, is I'm a lover, not a fighter, but I'm also a fighter, so don't get any ideas. So that's the general theme. You already know the word karma, but karma, as the press says, is not a bitch. Karma is a very important and central theme in the Hindu tradition, not in a way that, oh, if you do bad things and stuff happens to you down the road. Of course, that is one interpretation of karma, but the central theme is a just and self-balancing universe, a belief that the universe is not chaotic or random. And that's very important in the Hindu tradition, because what you do does affect you. And because lives are short, it might affect you in other lives. And if good things are happening to bad people, well, maybe they did good things earlier, and vice versa. It requires a belief that the universe is fundamentally balanced. It is just. It is not randomly doing good things to bad people. And then the rest of us that are trying to lead a moral, ethical life have no payoff. In which case, why the heck should we do everything that's moral? Why should we be altruistic? No. So the tradition says that, and this is a requirement, it's called the law of karma, that every action has its consequences that shapes one's future. And that cosmic balance of cause and effect echoes and ricochets across lifetimes. And so you will see the corollary that I snuck right in, the expectation of multiple lifetimes. We do not have a one-shot life. We tend to come again and again. And that's a very core part of the belief system. And that's why we do have a heaven and hell, incidentally, but they're all, they're very transient. You go there and you come back. So we believe in recycling. We're very good stewards of the afterlife as well. So there's a lot of recycling that goes on. And what we're trying to do is get the heck out of this recycling. The human project is really to become awake to one's reality, and then to come out of it through a process of action or wisdom or devotion, as it might be. And so karmic balance is a very core belief. Every action can be sacred, offering and gratitude. So everything is part of the universe itself. So which comes to the question that I will answer after number 10. But basically, every action can be sacred through dedication to the divine, opening the heart, cultivating the heart, and then every action we do is already submitted to the divine as an action that begins and ends with the divine. We happen to be the medium of that action. And that everything then becomes a participatory dance, a group dance, so to speak, but one that is more fun. And so this is a very core thing. And then age appropriate living. This is very important, because here, of course, we all live in Peter Pan lives where we don't want to age, we don't want to die. But in the Hindu tradition, there are 4 stages of life: student, householder, retiree, and renunciate. And so typically you might say 25 years each, but your mileage may vary. The idea is that you're doing different things at different stages. Stage 1, you're acquiring a lot of knowledge. You're not out there partying and having sex. You are there acquiring a lot of knowledge. And then you get married, you earn a lot of money, you raise a family, and you donate a lot of money, because the only earning member of the entire society is the householder. So a lot rests on the shoulders of the householders to earn and to donate and spend, because they're raising good families. And then by about 50, you now begin to, the retirement is an English word. That's not really the real word. The word in the Hindu tradition is vanaprastha, which is proceeding to the forest. And so you're essentially withdrawing from city life and longingly looking at the forest and saying, you know what? Not my circus, not my monkeys. Let me get the heck out of here. And you spend about a couple of decades trying to get out of that, raising grandkids and really just looking longingly at the hills and saying, maybe I should retire there. And then eventually you're a renunciate, where you have given up in trying to control the world and your cultivation of the self, and looking forward to your next life or no life whatsoever after that is your project at the end. This is important because then we're consistent with the seasons of the life. We're not trying to do springy things in fall, because then everything is out of sync. And which comes out to balance itself. Yes, Jamie, your hand is up. I'm going to stop sharing. Yes,
Yeah.
it's the same word. It's just, it acquires two meaning. Ashram is a place of rest. And so you rest and refuge. And so when you're in your natural state, you don't have to strive. Right. And that's why they're also called ashramas. It's same word and same intended meaning, but it applies in sort of different contexts. Okay, little head, large head. Let's just do, you have a head. Okay, I'm going to do I'm sorry, I lost how I was sharing the content. So I got my head cut off. We are back. My head has been restored. All right. And then we got, okay, so Purusharthas. Now, what is the aim of life? Aim of life is very important. because we recognize that there are four essential aims of life. Dharma, same word we've heard before, which is doing the right thing, just being in sync with the inside and outside. Artha, monetary, economic prosperity, is a very essential aim of life. We don't shun it. We are not anti-money people, so to speak. Pleasure is a very important part of, because this is aesthetic pleasure that derives from good food, good relationships, good sex, good whatever. But the point is pleasure itself. The pursuit of pleasure is recognized as an aim of life. And finally, spiritual liberation. That is the ultimate goal of life. And those are all recognized as goals of life. And we strive for these. And we don't want just one or the other. We want to get to the right mix for us. And finally, this is a very core thing that you're going to get a lot, which is Dharma protects those who protect Dharma, which is Dharma Rakshati Rakshita, order in society. If we live in a rules-based society, or society of nations, for example, then there's commerce, then there's trade, then there's exchange of ideas and money and goods and services and so on. That's a good society. But when the order breaks down, then you don't get the toilet paper, you don't get the fruits or the avocados from other places. Stuff breaks down, right? And so protecting order in society protects us. And so it is an essential part of being in a society to try to protect order. Yes, Jackie.
Yeah, so I appreciate when in the videos I watched in the study about how you described spiritual distress. And I think going through these tenets that you did. So if we meet someone in spiritual distress, we're feeling like, or they're feeling like their body, mind, and spirit is out of sync with all of what you've said. That balance is no longer there for them. And that's their distress. So, you had said some strategies on how to do that, like get them back to story and connection and in rituals. Performing a ritual with them as part of spiritual care would help them, right? The
Yes.
chanting and all that. Okay.
Yes. So rituals are very important and very poorly understood even by modern practicing Hindus. In fact, a lot of westernized, I'm a Anglophile, obviously I speak in English, right? I mean, I speak Hindi and Sanskrit as well, but because I notice people train themselves to saying, oh no, I don't believe in ritual. This is all empty. Rituals have deep meaning and significance in the Hindu tradition, I'm sure in every other tradition, because that's the nature of ritual themselves. It's important because it creates an architecture in time. Repetition of those rituals breaks down time into smaller bite-sized chunks. And so having a daily ritual is an important part of the Hindu tradition. You might, for example, in the morning, offer a glass of water, a cup of water to the sun. Now, you might say, why would I need to do that? What's the point of that? The sun doesn't really drink the water that I give it. But it does several things. One does not simply offer a glass of water. You have to bathe and then do this. And you have to do this with the sun at a low angle. And now you keep adding these, and you arrived at, this Professor Huberman lab in Stanford, which is you got to get early morning sunlight in order to synchronize your body clock to the sun clock of the day. And you do that only at a low angle sunlight. You've bathed and showered, you've actually exposed yourself to the sunlight in the morning, and you've bookmarked your day. And so now rituals become the framework upon which your entire life can be constructed. And so in the Hindu tradition, rituals could be lighting a little tea light, can be a ritual. Chanting a mantra can be a ritual. The breath ritual and coordinating the breath, body, and mind can be a ritual. There are several mantras that in the chaplaincy guide, we have put in a few mantras, and there'll be a QR code. You'll be able to get the audios and so on. But all we're trying to do is reset to factory settings, a mind that has wandered away into unfavorable.
Well, an illness can do that. And when you become a patient in the hospital, all of your familiarity is taken away from you, including your identity. So to bring that back can help them find that balance, and even if it's just listening to story, right?
Yeah. There are, in the chaplaincy guide, we put in about 10 stories that you might use. These are interesting, lighthearted stories, but they're just, depending on the context, you could pull one out or the other. One thing I should tell you, and I was reminded of that by the note, who had sent the note. Jamie, you'd sent in the note. Some chaplains have told us, because you might have a Gita or some Hindu scripture, and you might visit a patient and you might say, may I leave this with you? And that's all good. But please do not leave it by my feet. Because what happens is people feel extremely distressed by the whole thing, because again, feet, not good. So what happens is you can't leave a holy book by my feet. It's just then even if I'm sick or, that's one. The other is a lot of patients are distressed because, going back to Jackie, your question on ritual, they have their ritual, but they need to shower. They need to bathe. And you're in a hospital bed, you haven't been bathed. So the people feel extremely uneasy with that, because they feel that, the right form is to be clean. And here I am, unwashed, and so on. And then you have to sort of help them find their ways around it. And that's important. And I have to say, I saw a good omen, which is great. In these classes, I find it's a great omen if a cat walks up to the screen. I'm told the cat senses the energy of the speaker. So far, so good.
Mine will probably come too. Did you say we would have access to that chaplaincy guide?
It's on Amazon. So just look up Hindu chaplaincy.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's at $8 or something. And it's a tiny little thing. It looks like this. And it's designed to be sort of a quick read, but also useful for this purpose. We just published it last month for the same reason. Okay.
I just ordered it. I do have a number of Hindu patients in a big Los Angeles hospital, and so it's very common. And often they are well supported by families. You walk into the room and it smells like chana, because they bring food to their family, loved ones who are able to eat regular food. And I will usually offer to play I carry a Bluetooth speaker, maybe some chants, the Craig Proust art of, the singers, art of Shiva singers. Yeah. So they love those chants. And sometimes I'll invite them if they want to sit in meditation, and we'll play, like, I've got a 30-minute Om Namah Shivaya chant from Craig
wonderful.
Proust. Yeah. But your guide, I can't wait to get it. I'm really excited. And oh, by the way, at our hospital, we have a really huge and well-attended Diwali celebration. So
Wow.
It's really cool.
That's what I love about LA and New York, the eclectic and very sort of wide communities that you have in those cities is just amazing. I mean, Bay Area has, of course, enough going on as well, but I find LA and New York really good.
Rich, will you
Yeah.
put the name of the chanting or the something that I could think? Oh, great. Oh, there's the book. But I mean, you were mentioning names of
Yeah.
people that do the
I'll just pull it up 1 second. Let me just find it. So there's an interesting verse that you might find interesting. 1 second, I'm just pulling it up. And Rich, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Triambakam Yajamahe. And so let me just the verse. And so I'm going to show you the meaning and show you why it's an interesting verse for typically bedside. This is a chanting that's usually done for long life, but you see the meaning is quite interesting. I'm just pulling it up. It's over here. So this one. And I'll chant it for you, and then I'll explain what this is and what it actually means. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityuhor Mukshayamamrita. And so what it means is quite interesting. And it says basically that Triambaka is the three-eyed one. Three-eyed is Shiva. Shiva is referred to as the three-eyed one, and three-eyed as in past, present, and future. Also, he has the third eye that you will see. And so he is the past, present, and future. And this, it says, what it's basically saying is this: the flowers that are fragrant. So Shiva is also described as the fragrant one and the nourisher and sustainer of life, right? So he's the three-eyed one who's fragrant and the nourisher and sustainer of life. But the second part, which is the really interesting part, is, how when fruits are ripe, when the fruits are not ripe, you really have to pull at them or cut them off the branch. But when the fruit is ripe, what does it do? It immediately just falls off on its own. And that's what it says. It says, like a cucumber, a ripe cucumber effortlessly separates from the vine, right? May I be freed from the bounds of life. And so it's really interesting because it is freeing us from the fear of death and to realize immortality and to say, which is as our friend, what's his name, Woody Allen, did he say that he would like to be immortal, but not by dying? So this is the same thing, which is, and so this is a verse that is generally chanted at bedside for patients at end of life, after end of life, because essentially the clinging that we have to life, it is freeing from that clinging. That clinging is caused by fear. The release of that fear releases that cling. It doesn't mean that we are accepting death. It means that we're accepting life as it is. And that itself brings us freedom from death. And so it's a very, very deep, and then you can repeat this 108 times. 108 is 2 times 54. Okay, we have 9 minutes, and I want to make sure we make the best use of everyone's time. I did not talk about the many gods, so maybe I should talk about that for a couple of minutes. What God do you believe in is a question that I'm asked frequently. The other 2 frequent questions are caste and cow, but I'll cover the gods part right now. Many gods. Hindus actually do believe in many forms of the divine. There are, of course, famously Ganesha, there's Shiva, there's Vishnu, there's the mother goddess, many forms of the divine. But what you have to understand is that's the outward manifestation. If you go back to what we truly believe, we don't believe in one God. We just believe in all one. Everything is one. There is no creator outside. We are the light of consciousness inside us is common. And that's when you already know the famous namaste in yoga, which is I'm greeting the light inside you, the light inside me. And all of that is to recognize that the same light illuminates all of our consciousness. And so this entire creation is one. There is no outside God sitting 60 miles up in the heavens or anything. So why so many manifestations? Because like we give hurricanes name, currencies name, we just give things name because that's how we may know them. That's how we can separate a US dollar from a Zimbabwean dollar, for that matter. And so we give these names in a way that allows us to recognize their different properties. Sometimes we believe that our consciousness, everything is a manifestation of pure consciousness. Sometimes we believe that all the energy that we feel inside us is common, and we are part of this great cosmic dance together. And so all those different forms are understood as different divinities, each with their own backstory, family histories, and everything. But the essential understanding is still the same. And depending on your sect, your philosophical tradition, your teachers, you might understand the same underlying truth in different ways. Ekam Sat, the truth is one, but the wise know it by many names. Many paths that lead to the ultimate same truth, and every path can be valid. That universality is a core part of the Hindu tradition. It's the reason why it's been around for so long. It's been all absorbing, all changing, all common. It's not a shapeless amoeba-like lump that is just shapeless. It has a very definite form at its core. The outward manifestation can vary depending on your family or the sect that you went to or the guru that you follow and so on. And so it's a very vibrant, very thriving religion. It comes from a place of abundance. It is not a scarcity religion. And that's important to understand because a lot of the Western religious systems tend to come from places that require conformity and because they're sort of scarcity oriented. Don't do this, don't do that kind of thing. Hindus or Hinduism comes from a very fertile land. And so the ideas of abundance are very core to it. Wealth is abundance, knowledge is abundance. There are things that you share that don't diminish by the sharing of them. Right? Order is such a thing. Wealth is such a thing. Wisdom is such a thing. And so abundance is everywhere. Life itself is abundant. And so that abundance is at the core of the tradition. So when you look at the outward manifestation of Hinduism, you will see dances. You will see a lot of celebrations. You'll see a lot of color. You'll see a lot of shapes and forms and variety. And it's all celebrated. It's not by any means an austere religion. And when you come to a Hindu temple visit, if you come to the Bay Area, I host visits about twice a quarter, and they're quite an experience because it's quite overwhelming. You're expecting something which is a quiet place of God, and you walk in, and before you walk in, you can already smell it smells really nice, not curry, but like really good fragrances. And there's gold and silver everywhere. I mean, these are very abundant places, but not in an outward sort of manifestation of material wealth, but simply an expression of the abundance that is an essential part of our understanding of how the universe works. Because there is something. It isn't that it's all nothing, and that something is coming from a place where some things come from. And so abundance is an essential nature of this universe. And so the tradition itself is a very interesting and hard to pin down. And I understand that if you haven't really been exposed to Hindu people at large, Hindu conversations, it might seem very complex, and it is. But essentially, it's very simple. It's a celebration of life, it's a celebration of order. It appreciates order, but it also understands the changeful nature of the universe. So it doesn't cling to a past, it continues to sort of move boldly into the future. And with that, I'm done with the talk, because usually this is a longer lecture, but we're now down to 1 hour. Any questions or comments that I can answer for you? I've told Rivka, I'm do this out of pleasure. And I have to tell you this, last 5, 6, I don't know how many years I've been doing this. It turns out that one of these classes is I'll accept the class because 2 months ahead, and then I'll go to India. And so there have been times that I have done this class at 1 in the morning in India. And I've done a full day of teaching that day. And so there have been times twice last year when I've done, in 36 hours, I've done about 30 hours of instruction.
Wow.
But I love it. I love this experience of being with you and your company. And it's very important that I do a good job, because that's what you want me to do. And I appreciate the opportunity.
We don't have time now, but the syllabus mentioned a sort of guided virtual tour of an actual temple. I don't know if there's a link to that.
Hold on. So let me save everyone time. I will find you the video from the last class. I do this because it's usually I do 3-hour classes. At that time, I have enough time.
Okay, I
Uh,
see.
And so 1 second, typically, right? And so I would tell you the story of that. So once I told, this January, I talked about the Kumbh Mela, the largest gathering of humans in the history of humanity.
Wow.
And this is by no means hyperbole, because you know how many people showed up within a month? 660 million people. Insane. And that vast gathering was the topic of my last talk, because I wanted to talk about it. And so that I'm going to send you that. And then the temple visit is part of the same recording. So let me find it. Okay, let me first send you to my channel. Just go to Yoga Living Deeply, which I will find you a link for. Okay. And the last class was presenting Hinduism at Mahakam. So I'll paste the video here. And then my email is already pasted in the chat. Okay, Essential Shaman. Okay, good. We're about to wrap up. Oh, this is a break. Sorry. So I got 2 minutes to eat into your break. But basically, the Kumbh Mela, 660 million people come together in one place. I cheated. I did go to the same place. There's a confluence of 3 rivers, 2 visible, 1 invisible. And that's where everyone gathers. And I went there a week after the whole thing finished. And there were not as many people, maybe 100,000, but not like 10 million. So it was still crowded, but it wasn't crazy. And we went to the middle of the water. It was quite an experience. Let me find you that photo, and then I'll wrap up with the closing prayer. 1 second. I hope this is fine. I'm eating it. Let me find you that photo. This is the photo. Where is the photo? It's so funny. Okay, this is not photo. I jumped into the Ghibli trend with Chat GPT. So what you see is not the photo itself, but a reconstruction of the photo. But it is me, and it is real. So I'll just show you the amazing place behind. This is a reconstruction of my own photo, but this is it. To the left of me is the Yamuna River that comes from Delhi, and to the top, this side is the Ganga River that's coming from within the thing. This is a confluence of 2 rivers, a little blue over here, a little green over here. This is a place where you feel the warm and cold waters simultaneously. And then you could stand there. It is quite an experience. With several scores of millions of people out at one time, it is quite the experience. So,
Bring your hand sanitizer.
oh, yeah. That's for sure. All right. Okay, so I'm going to do the closing prayers. This is a prayer for sort of well-being all around. It's radiating good wishes in all directions. So I'll tell you what it means. 1 second, closing prayers. Let me just pull it up. I have all of this stuff. And then if someone sends me an email, I can send these files to you. It's all good. But let me just put it up here so you know what we're talking about. Here. Okay, it says, may everyone be happy. May everyone be free of diseases. May everyone see goodness and auspiciousness in everything. May none be unhappy or distressed. And again, I will do Om 3 times. That's what we're doing. So just sit comfortably with your eyes closed. I'll chant Om once. If you'd like, bring your palms together in Namaskar Mudra. Exhale completely. Take a deep breath. Inhale. Inhale and chant. Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santo niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Release your hands. As you breathe in, look up. As you breathe out, bring your head down, neck, chin into the chest. Back up. So rub your palms together to generate some heat. Gently shield your eyeballs, the warm palms to transfer that heat, and then blink your eyes open and pull your palms back. I thank you very much for choosing to serve the community in the way that you have. I thank you very much for choosing to learn and coming with an open heart to this conversation. I'm always available to answer your questions. If you're visiting the Bay Area, I'd love to meet you. And happy to answer any questions. You have my email, so you can reach out. And then if you're in LA, we have colleagues in LA. If you ever need a Hindu chaplain, we have people that can help you and can physically meet you. We have Usha ji, we have quite a few people in Cerritos, which is nearby. So I'm happy to work with you. All right. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
I have a question. Is there any transliteration?
Oh, those verses, we just put the meaning in there.
No.
It does have it in English. Yeah, it does.
Oh, it does.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, we've written it for a lot of Indian people don't read those either. So we have it both in the Indian script, the Sanskrit script, and the English.
The English meaning the transliteration.
Yeah, so Roman letters. Yes, sorry, this is what I meant. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Good. I didn't see it, but you only showed the one page. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Namaskar.
I have one last question too. One last question. Also in Los Angeles, very big is the Self-Realization Fellowship, Paramahansa Yogananda.
Yes.
And they do meet in a very sort of westernized, ritualized way on Sundays with meditation and a Dharma talk and, music. Is that like Vedanta? Would that be considered a Hindu school of Hinduism in some ways?
Yeah. So it's definitely a school of Hinduism. And so SRF comes from Paramahansa Yogananda, and whose teacher's teacher. So my initiation is in the same lineage. I actually at their house in Banaras. So yes, it is very much within the Hindu tradition, just presented to a Western audience in a sort of a nice manner. And he was really good at writing, so he made the whole thing about Christ because he wanted the audience to understand everything. And so, but definitely a very Hindu tradition. And I've attended their services, so they're definitely very good. We have a couple of people from that group that are part of our network as well. Yes.
Yeah, I've had patients who were clearly Indian, but they were devotees really of Paramahansa Yogananda, and he calls it the Church of all religions. And I've done all the lessons that he has.
The correspondence thing.
Yeah, I've done it twice. Yeah.
So Kriya Yoga it's not necessarily Neo Vedanta. A lot of what's called Vedanta in the West is a new revisionist version of Vedanta, which is sort of written for a Western audience. This one going all the way back to the Yoga Sutras, where Kriya Yoga itself comes from the 3 precepts. The breath work and the meditational practices are from Lahiri Mahasaya, coming to him from Mahavatar Baba. And so those are all, they're legit, they're a very core, the meditational infrastructure, the philosophical framework, everything is directly from Hinduism. Very legit. tradition.
And then Siddha Yoga, Muktananda Baba, that lineage there. That was my teaching from my teacher. Familiar with Siddha Yoga at all?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, of
Oh,
course.
yeah.
Gordon, I remember now the lunch with you, by the way, with Jurgen. So that's how I remember. Sorry. So Siddha, they're definitely very core part of. I mean, they're all these all the gurus. They have their own insight, their own illumination that they bring, and then they interpret in that light of their own illumination, and they're
Yeah.
all acceptable. Yeah.
All right, I'll let you go. You're
Kashmir Shaivism as
amazing.
well. Kashmir Shaivism as well is similarly very core part of the
Yeah.
tradition and very beautiful. In fact, should be more popular than it already is because it's very pure, it's very direct, and it's a very internally, philosophically very rich tradition.
Yes, that's
Wow.
my understanding. Well, this particular session should be a 90-minute session for sure, because it's just so much. My gosh. And yes, John did cover Hindu and Buddhist texts yesterday in an hour-long session. So in some ways we did get an expanded view, but this could have gone on easily for 90 minutes. Thank you
Oh
very
my God,
much.
Rich, you would have loved the in-person when we actually go to the temple, the whole class goes.
Oh, I would.
It was fabulous. It was really something special. We spent almost like the whole entire, well, at least half a day with you, right?
Half day, yeah.
It
We
was
spend a lot of time.
so wonderful. Wow.
Yeah, at our hospital, we have Lord Krishna Day, and then our Diwali celebration is like huge, and it's a lot of fun. So, and the spiritual care department plays a very important role in facilitating that, and we decorate a big room, and it's really made. We have dancing, and we have somebody bring some dal and chana, and yeah, it's amazing.
That's amazing. Well, wonderful.
Gaurav, I don't have your email address, so before you go,
I
can you
put that in the
into
chat. It's up there somewhere.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Katrina. Namaskar. All
All
right.
right, bye.
I wish you all the best, and it's been a pleasure contacting with you and having this interaction. Thank you.
Shema.
Thank you.